What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend. Bobby Faz, my man, Eric Sheets Haber here, and we are going to be talking through tonight's NBA slate. Got to give Sheets another congratulations for coming in fourth in golf this week. That was a big one for 20K. That was, hey, the streak keeps going. Sheets and Rody, and then a little bit, myself. I had the big win on Wednesday, but we've had some seriously big wins lately, and it feels good. And we're getting new people on the site. I did add I want to add this. Please, guys, please like the videos whenever you can. It always means a lot. It actually helps with everything. But also, please, enter any thoughts you have into the support channel, as well as anything you're having trouble with the site, because we are trying to implement some changes, and it is bogging some things down at times, but we're trying to improve it every day. So let us know when that's happening, and we'll get to take care of that. But Sheets, congratulations, and yeah, tell me about your weekend, and then we'll jump into the slate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the kids still say we got to keep it real, but if in case they do, we're going to keep it real. Since I ran like Jesus last weekend and won everything, it was a rough week. It was really fun. That's the way DFS works, and it was some unluck, but a lot of it's really bad play by me. I would forget that guys would be out. I would be doing stupid stuff. And, DFS punishes you if you don't play well, and even this weekend, I even played some LOL slates and I forgot a guy was sitting. And then in the NBA, I would put stuff in, forget to double check lineups. Really bad overall. And then golf, I played, a bunch of lineups. And then going into the Sunday, because remember, it wasn't cut till after Saturday, I had literally one lineup that was 6 for 6. It was 186th place or something like that. So I just posted on the Discord, hey, this is all I got left. And then I think basically everybody on my lineup got 75 birdies that day or something like that. I don't know exactly how it happened.
Crazy.
But it was Hoagie and everybody, and so that was that. So that basically at cash of 20,000, I was down no offense, I was down 10,000 going into that one lineup for the week. Right. So the thing is, that's all you need, man. Yep. you just need one. But it's I got to learn from that a little bit, because you still have to be disciplined. You still have to stay focused. You still have to play well. And that's what's so funny. Bobby and I were talking offline about how the guys are making just a carload of money on Stake Kings, on Bobby's action and stuff like that. And every once in a while, I'm in Tyler, the guys from Stakes, said, well, dude, why don't you put some stakes up just for fun? I'm I always think about doing that just for fun. People want to get involved maybe with Sheets action, stuff like that. But I just know that I'm going to put a slate up, and then it's going to be the day that I'm going to the city for dinner. I'm going to throw in lineups. I'm not going to pay attention, and I'll leave. It's one of those things I can make the mistake for myself, but I wouldn't want to make the mistake for others. But then on the other hand, maybe I should do it this way. Maybe I'll stay disciplined. If I have someone else counting on me, maybe I won't make stupid mistakes like that. And in any case, that's actually a subtle plug for Stake Kings for Bobby. Hey, listen, this what this reminds you of? Back in the poker days, they used to have these satellites to all the live events. Mm-hmm. When pokers were really big, they had these double shootouts that were running on PokerStars. You had to run 2 shootouts to get in there. And it was such a demand for it that once they actually posted in the lobby, it took 10 seconds for these things to sell out. Yep. Just like that. And I literally would have I would know where on the screen to click to try to reserve a spot for these things. That's basically what it's like trying to get action for on Bobby and Stake Kings nowadays. He puts his stuff on Stake Kings, and within 30 seconds of it popping up there, it all gets sold out. And Bobby feels bad. He's I want to get other people involved too, and he doesn't want to up his markup. You know what I mean? He wants to be fair or whatever it is. But if you can get in there, go to Stake Kings and get a piece while he's running hot. And
same with Rody as well too. Same exact deal. Yeah, he's been on fire as well. So we'll do that. All right, well, let's get to tonight's slate, man. It's a small one, very manageable, and we have a lot of question marks, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things that are going to change. But unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, the first game of the night is definitely the game that I feel like I need to have the most exposure to, especially on the Toronto side. As everybody I'm sure knows by now, I play more probably Toronto guys than I do anyone. I can't get over the minutes and the usage for certain guys. And knowing that if the game is tight, you're going to get close to 40 minutes from 5 different guys is really hard to just overlook. and you have what should be a close game against a team that plays one of the fastest and one of the worst defense, although they've been a little bit better, Charlotte, lately. I still think this is a great spot to attack. What are your thoughts on this game, and how would you prioritize these guys, I guess, on the Toronto side?
Yeah, you had mentioned, we were talking offline that the other day, I forget which day it was, you were in incredible position to win the
Friday,
alley, I think. And I think it was the same slate where you had the two Toronto guys.
Yep.
Was that was the same one?
Yes, Siakam, VanVleet, yeah.
And I think Siakam had like close to 50 fantasy points at the half,
Yep.
and VanVleet was not, I would say struggling, but just because Siakam had the ball, you know what I mean? Like VanVleet couldn't have it. Then VanVleet came back, and we were just basically one position away from kind of getting it.
Yep.
So like you said, I mean, when I sort these things by minutes, it's like ridiculous. Like they always project for 40 minutes. That's just the way Toronto rolls. And it's become like the VanVleet Siakam show, and Siakam's playing really well. I happen to like both of them. I would throw in on FanDuel specifically that I do like Scotty Barnes also.
Yep.
More so on FanDuel. And the guy that's showing up for me on Charlotte is actually Gordon Hayward.
Mm-hmm.
I think I played him maybe one share the whole season. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if somebody's out or something, but he's showing up, or maybe just really, really cheap, but he's showing up as my top value for Charlotte. So for me, it'd be VanVleet, Siakam. I really don't have a problem playing them both on a small slate, if you want to know the truth. And
yeah, I'm with you. I mean, but also about the Hayward thing, his price has dropped. The bottoms come out of his price because there was a blowout he played in on a back-to-back, but he did play 30 minutes almost his first game back, which makes me feel pretty confident about his 30 with upside minutes tonight. So maybe like I think he's a reasonable bet for 28 to 36 minutes. And if that happens, and Toronto, by the way, will give up points, even though they've got good defenders, they'll play fast too with you. So I love him as a run back. I totally agree with that. But I agree with you that Siakam, VanVleet. I think that Barnes is playable on both sides. I think Trent is playable, especially on DK, but I might even consider him on FanDuel just because no one's going to play him comparatively over there. And I don't mind mixing in some Anunoby, who will be the unowned one of the bunch, even though we haven't seen the real ceiling much lately outside of one game. I still think that it really could be any of these guys on a given night. But the VanVleet, Siakam are definitely the priorities for me, with Hayward as the run back. And then if you're not going to run Hayward back, I don't mind Terry Rozier. And I don't mind, even though he's not going to project well and no one's going to play him. And Terry Rozier really does cut into some of his stuff along with Hayward. But don't look at the game logs just when you play guys like LaMelo, because we know the ceiling is there. The last time he scored 63 the other day. Before that, he had a 49 and a 36 before that. The game before that, he scored 69. Then before that, it was 39, 32, 35, 46. But the ceiling is just massive. And it's not a great individual matchup for him against VanVleet. But I still think that you want to mix in some shares of that, especially for such a stackable game. And especially if we get value, because there's no studs on this slate other than Steph. And we all know Steph's fantasy production can go in waves, especially in a game they could win by 20 plus. So it's hard to know what to do exactly with that. But I do think it's a really important spot where I'm probably going to have like 3 players from this game at first look in most of my lineups.
I wouldn't mind also playing. I think you can always play Miles Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at the board here, I mean, you have Miami, Washington, which could be just a total slug. You could have Phoenix, Chicago, which could be anything. I mean, these teams play defense. Golden State, OKC could be a shit show. Knicks, Utah as usual. This game could just freaking just blow out, blow up. This is like the one game where you're going to get 2 kind of fast teams, and it's probably, I assume it's a pretty close spread. I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, it's a 2-point Toronto. That's it.
So I mean, I got no problem overdoing it on this game a little bit. One other guy from Charlotte. Do you like any? I don't know why I don't like playing Kelly Oubre anymore. I used to, but I don't get to him that much. Do you like PJ Washington at all, 4,800 or not?
I don't mind either Oubre or PJ Washington, but they're not like priority guys for me. I do think that they're both viable I think even Plumlee's viable. I just think that by the time the slate sort of rolls around, I think there's going to be better plays out there once we hear about the Miami news and things like that. But I do think Oubre is always worth a tournament shot. And I would prefer him a little bit over Washington, but I do think PJ Washington has been sort of at the bottom end of his fantasy production most of the season. And at 4,800, I'm just willing to take a little gamble there. But I do like I don't mind the Oubre idea. What I wouldn't do is play like an Oubre, LaMelo, Hayward lineup. I just think you're cutting into too much of each other. But other than that, I'm totally into all these guys. I think this is the game you want to target, depending on, of course, what happens with the Miami side. Because if we get Jimmy Butler and Caleb Martin out, in addition to we'll probably have Hero out, it's going to be an interesting one. So we'll get into that game. Why don't you tell me what you're looking at? 'Cause I do think Hero is not going to, I think it's very unlikely that Hero plays in this game. And that kind of frustrates me only because I was looking forward to playing a very low owned Kyle Lowry, who will probably still be fairly low owned, but I don't think he'll be crazy low owned. So I think Lowry is going to end up being one of the guys who I play quite a bit of today, and Dinwiddie on the other side, even though it's a terrible matchup. I just like to play him without Beal. And again, these teams have been involved in blowouts lately, so the game logs are not what you should be focusing on. But who are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, I had a note. I didn't know all the injury stuff with Miami. I just had a note the Lowry specifically on FanDuel. That was what I kind of. Is he under 6K there maybe?
Yeah, he's 5,600.
Yeah,
They're a really good play on FanDuel, but I think that he'll be owned over. I think even with this news, that's what happens is people decide to play him on one site, but not play him as much on the other one. So where he might be 30+% on FanDuel, maybe he only ends up 10% on DK.
Yeah, so that's really all I came up with the Miami pending news. I get that's kind of where I'm at always with Miami. The good news is that it's 7:00 and we'll be able to get that. And then on the other side, on the Washington side, to me, I still look at those big guys. Between Harrell and Bryant, you have one at 47 and the other at 34, and I think they're both going to look kind of decent. Obviously, it's not a great matchup. But I don't know. I mean, there's not all that much to play tonight.
Yes.
So, well, then again, I mean, like it depends on how chalky the OKC guy is, the Akiti guy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But Harrell and Brian, I think they're both very reasonable. And I didn't really. And then aside from KCP, who I just don't play, I don't really have too much on Washington. You like Dinwiddie tonight?
So I don't like the matchup, but I think that this price is just not accurate for where he is without Beal. Now, he had some down games in there, but like we mentioned, so starting at Milwaukee, it was only really the last 3 games that we've had basically the same lineup that they've got now. And he had the down game-ish against Milwaukee where everybody played him, but it was still 28 fantasy points. And then against Philly, he was terrific. Even though he was 4 for 16, he still had 47 fantasy points. And I believe he had a triple-double in that game, which just definitely helped his case. Yeah, he did. Then they get smoked by Phoenix, and that game, the starters didn't play basically the whole fourth quarter and didn't missed the whole rotation. He still had a terrible game. It's not a good matchup against Kyle Lowry, don't get me wrong, but the usage has to go somewhere. So I like he and Kuzma both. And I don't think you need to split them up, but because of the nature of the slate, because it's Miami, I don't really want to stack against Miami unless Miami ends up with no Butler in addition to Hero and no Caleb Martin, because then you're starting to get to where you could play both sides of it. But I also think one of Harrell, and you mentioned Brian, I think Rui is the guy I would sort of head more towards. I'm using that utility spot quite a bit for my point guards. And as I already named a bunch of them, so far. And that's why I'm sort of holding off on the center position, except for guys I really like. And the thing with Thomas Bryant is I just feel so shaky about the minutes. And while I feel a little shaky about Harrell, I feel like, Harrell at least is that, he'll do things while he's out there. He's probably going to play more minutes than Bryant because Bryant they like Bryant and they just want to keep him on this minutes limit. So I don't know. I think Rui is a little bit who I would lean towards after the Dinwiddie, Kuzma, potentially. I have Rui and Harrell rated very similarly. And then it just depends on what Miami does, because that could really open or change things. And Miami only being a 6.5 point favorite doesn't tell me a ton here. I think that Jimmy Butler is legitimate game time or legitimate questionable, but we'll know that beforehand, and that will force us to adjust. But for me, it's going to be adjusting to, I will play Bam if Jimmy doesn't play. If Jimmy does, it's going to be hard to get to Bam at 9K. That's pretty much all I have for that one. What are your thoughts on Phoenix, Chicago?
This is, I know some big time superstars have something to say about this, but this could be the NBA Finals.
Yeah,
it's very possible. And I'll tell you, this reminds me, going back. I mean, this is, when back in not even the day, but back even post day, when Chicago played Phoenix before, I remember that was I felt really bad for Phoenix because that was one of the best teams that really had no chance to win an NBA championship. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because they were against the Bulls, but they were really, really good. With
Yeah, the
Dennis
96,
Rodman
the
and
96
Barkley and all these. I mean, like they were
Yeah.
legit. But this is I don't know if anybody's going to be healthy, so it's not everybody's going to be healthy, so it's not exactly a preview really, because I don't think all the Chicago guys are going to be in. Levine's going to be out, right?
We don't know about Levine for sure, but I mean, obviously we do know Ball and Caruso are out, which makes Chicago's defense worse. So all that.
So in any case, I do like both Booker and Chris Paul on the Phoenix side. And I like Jay Crowder as well. He's projecting nicely. On the Chicago side, I just kind of have, I mean, we could talk about how great this freaking Desanu is. I mean, he's really, I mean, he's a legit part of this freaking team, and it's obviously you prefer to not have guys injured, but this is the upside of that, and you get guys like this that like really develop, and they got away with it. You know what I mean? Like these guys have been injured, yet they're still in first place, right?
Right.
So you get to develop this guy, and even that other dude that's coming off the bench, that Hill is not bad. I mean, like there are guys that are not bad.
Yeah.
So in any case, none of them seem to be doing all that much for me today, though. I mean, I like DeRozan the best. So for me, I like Booker. I like Chris Paul. I just can never play them both.
Mm-hmm.
And Crowder's always viable for me. And I guess I like DeRozan the best of Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, DeRozan has been unbelievable. With these guys gone, he hasn't had a game less than 46. And he just put up 67. That it is a second of a back-to-back, and it's against a good Phoenix team, but it is at home. It's pretty weird to see a team in first, or just barely out of first place, I guess. But as 8-point underdogs at home, that's very strange. It makes sense to me because Phoenix is just beating the hell out of everybody. But I think Booker is the guy I would lean to for Phoenix today. I think DeAndre Ayton would be my second favorite, and I think Jay Crowder is a viable value play. And on the Bulls side, I need to know about Kobe White and Levine, because if both of them are out again, I would look back to Vooch or DeRozan, giving DeRozan the edge. But at the same time, I think people will flock to him, and Vooch will be the lower end of the two. So you can take that for whatever it is. And then Javonte Green, probably not the zone move at this price for me because he has to be so efficient with the way he plays. But I mean, I love him as a player. I just think that I would rather play Javonte Green as a cheap play, and then potentially Troy Brown Jr. as well if Kobe White and Levine are gone. But we need to know that information.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I saw you played him a couple of days ago in the big buy. I played him too. I don't like Troy Brown thing. I played him myself too, just because it was way too cheap and I knew he was going to play minutes. I've been waiting for a Troy Brown for like a long time, and I don't know, man.
He was 3K flat, and he put up 20 fantasy points. I don't play him much. I played him the other day.
Right.
Because with these guys out, I mean, if he's going to play 35 minutes, pretty much any starter is going to have my attention.
I guess so.
But I hear you. You know what I mean? If it was a giant slate, maybe not. But he and Javonte Green I rate as fairly similar players, and it wouldn't surprise me on the back-to-back if Kobe White and Levine are out, that Troy Brown could actually get some more usage than he has so far.
Yeah, I mean, but Javonte Green, and he's not much of a usage guy, but he doesn't really like to shoot, but man, he attacks. I mean, he attacks, he gets rebounds. I mean, I like that. I like him.
I agree with you. He's got a real good free throw rate without these guys. He's been over 25 in 5 straight games, and he's 4,200. I'm on board with Javonte Green being a solid play, actually either way. But if those guys are out, I think he's a really good play. Yep. Golden State and OKC, what do you got for me here? Because we got
so these are the values. OKC. I guess you didn't play on the weekend, but
no.
But this is the first time the Mamadi Diakite. He was relatively chalky in his last. Well, you think about it. He played 30 minutes the night before, and he was 3K flat. I mean, like, how is he not? And he basically disappointed. I mean, whatever. I mean. 24 minutes at 3K. I mean, you're supposed to be happy with that. You want to know the truth. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's rating as a similar play today. But he's 3,900. It's a little bit different than 3K flat. And then there's the easier play is Giddey. I mean, it's 6,500.
On FanDuel,
on FanDuel, that's correct. But I like him on DraftKings also. So it's Giddey, Diakite, and Baisley. And then on Golden State, like you said, it's, raw points, the raw point slate, right? So Curry's in play, but if it gets too chalky, I mean, you can certainly find points. In other words, you telling me for sure that Curry outscores Siakam? Right? You telling me for sure that Curry outscores DeRozan? I mean, I don't think so. I mean, probably, but not definitely. So
no, yeah. I actually think that, I think straight up, if those other guys are out, DeRozan is probably going to median out to a higher score than Steph Curry is.
Okay.
But I also think Steph Curry is going to project poorly and be lower owned, and even in 3 quarters, if it goes that way, I do. I think that as it stands right now, unless there's a ton of value, but even still, I think people will go to the Bulls guys if the other Bulls guys are out. But if there's a spend up, I do like Steph Curry as a spend up if people don't play him. It's the same story as always. If they do play him, no interest whatsoever. Maybe he squeezes into one, but he definitely is in play on FanDuel still either way. He's not as much cheaper as he was, but he's still 9,800 over there, and it's easier to get more spend ups in. But yeah, this game is sort of a weird one for me because Iguodala and Porter being in is kind of relevant, and that kind of sucks because we've seen this so many times with Golden State. It is really hard to guess the other guys who are getting that boost. It's easy to speculate, and we get Jonathan Kuminga goes from 0% owned to whatever percent owned, and it almost like with guys like Kuminga, it almost doesn't even seem like it matters whether the guys play or not. He's gonna get blowout run. He's gonna be very good in that blowout run. But as of right now, with Porter and Iguodala both questionable, I mean, I would even on these small slates, I will include if there is a lack of value or additional value. I don't mind Iguodala on these kind of slates. I should have mentioned earlier that I like Duncan Robinson at 3.6 also on these kind of slates because the shooting lights out, obviously you can put up a big score, and maybe even on big slates you could argue for him, but they should be on the court enough to have a good shot at 20-ish fantasy points, 20 plus fantasy points. And at their prices with the current value, that's not so bad. But I'm having a very hard time getting to a lot on DraftKings here on the OKC or Golden State side, except for Diakite a little bit, Baisley a little bit. I actually think Dort is a little bit of a better play than Giddey on DraftKings. He's been getting the usage. And then Trey Mann, who completely screwed me on Friday. These guys are all meh, is what I feel like. And I just don't feel sure about any of them. The Diakite is one that if we don't get more value, will probably be hard to not at least have him in some lineups.
By the way,
I think Kevon Looney is in play too, because you can get a million rebounds against this OKC front line. There's nobody that, Diakite is the guy you're going against. So I like Looney just as a potential double-double guy who can get you 30 for fantasy points, basically.
Did you, by the way, did you see Norman Powell make his debut yesterday?
I didn't see what he did. What did he do?
He scored like 1 billion points in like 2 minutes. I mean, I think he might have had like 45 fantasy points in like 25 minutes or something like that. He was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So what I was going to say, it's so funny that you hit on at that last thing was that, people sleep on this guy and people don't like to play him, including me, but it's hard to deny Kevin Looney has been a much better fantasy player this year than he had been. And this is exactly the small kind of slate that look, if you get chalkiness at the center position, which you're always, likely to get in some form, he could be a good play. I mean, he could get 30 against Oklahoma City. I mean, without much, it wouldn't surprise me if you want to know the truth.
Yep, absolutely. What do you think about your Knicks here in Utah? Because I have a lot of my first thought is I'm a little worried about the Knicks in this specific game. Honestly, I'm actually kind of even concerned about them staying close in some form, but Randall, let's not overreact. Look, everybody, if you didn't play Julius Randle on Saturday, I wasn't playing Saturday, but if you didn't play, you should really reconsider. Julius Randle will torch the Lakers every time he comes to LA. It's going to happen every single time. You'll see his usage spike to the highest it's been. He hasn't had that usage. Basically, the entire season, he's had one game with more usage than he had the other night. Still, he played well against Memphis right before that. And I think at 8,800, he would be my favorite for the Knicks, I guess. He and RJ Barrett, and maybe I'll talk myself into an Alec Burks revenge game. I think that actually is.
I tried to do that this morning. It's so funny. I was looking at that. I'm like, can I get an Alec Burks revenge? I just don't think he's going to get the run. You know what I mean? I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. For what it's worth, he did close against the Lakers the other night. I think he played the overtime. So the minutes, you could look at that two ways. One, oh, he only had 24 minutes in regulation. The other is that, well, if he's playing when they're really tight down the stretch, that's when you want to be able to have the guys who have that upside.
He could get the blowout run if they get blown out.
He could get run. I think he can get run either way, depending on how he's going. And I think he'll take a few more shots in this game than he usually does. I just think we see the story all the time. Even the littlest narratives end up making a difference.
He's only 4,800.
I know. It is really cheap for him. So I think he's probably my favorite Nick. And then I love Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, like he was another one that I had a ton of exposure to on Friday. And it's only the fact that Brooklyn literally couldn't stay in the game at all. Like literally could not do a single thing. Brooklyn has been the worst team in the NBA. This is not, it sounds like I'm just making this up. No, they've actually been the worst team in the NBA for the last couple of weeks, almost 3 weeks now. They haven't won a game. And Donovan Mitchell put up 42 in 21 minutes against them. I think he could go nuts against this team, whether Clarkson plays or not. If Clarkson doesn't play, it's a bonus. If Gay doesn't play, it's a bonus. But either way, he gets a slight boost without Gobert as it is. 8,400 is too cheap for him with the ceiling that he has. And I really, really like him a lot. So he's the one guy here I'm really looking at. The only other one that I would consider if everybody plays is probably Whiteside, just going for the ceiling game on maybe FanDuel or something. Because, even though we haven't seen so much of it lately on a small slate like this, why couldn't Hassan Whiteside go out? He can go out anytime and score 20 fantasy points and he can score 50. There's no reason why it couldn't happen. And that's really just my only argument on these little slates. You want to try and find guys to get different. He's an interesting option to get different with. That's the only other guy I have. Do you have anybody else that I didn't talk about?
Yeah, I would add in just on FanDuel, Bojan Bogdanovic is 5,100.
Oh yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
And even though, FanDuel is not necessarily conducive to his game, I mean, it's just way too cheap. So
agreed.
Like him and Gordon Hayward are kind of like the two kind of bizarre prices over there, and Lowry, So that's where I'm at over there. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that I think the Knicks could be in trouble in this game. Is this Mitchell's first game back since he's been hurt, or he's played?
No, he played Friday, but they just absolutely massacred Brooklyn. So like I said, he had 42 fantasy points in 21 minutes. He did make 6 out of 7 threes, but like you don't need him to be as effective.
Yeah, you know what? I'll bite. I'll probably try the Alec Burks. I mean, or at least I'll reserve the right to pivot to him, if things aren't going well. That's for sure.
I'm definitely going to throw in some Burks, and it wasn't a guy who was initially like I had to think through it as we were just talking, but like I really think that's actually a strong play, and I think he's playable on FanDuel too at the same price as the chalky Hayward and Bogdanovic. Right. Maybe you could include him because they have multiple position eligibility. So actually, that's kind of an interesting.
That's rough. He's really going to outscore Hayward somehow, huh?
No, he doesn't have to. He could play. I'm saying you could play all three together.
Oh, okay.
Bogdanovic and Hayward, and that way you don't have because of the other guys' prices, he's going to be low owned. So if you just include him in addition instead of using him as a pivot, right. I think that's a really viable route to just in terms of building. I think it makes a lot of sense. So that's it. I'm going to post all my bets and my plays later. I'm also going to be doing per the request of Carmen, Carmen in our chat. Buddy, I will try to include the main showdown game of who I would play. I don't generally play showdowns when there's a full.
Oh yeah, what's the main game? Which is it?
I don't even know which one it is tonight, but he asked us if we could start doing it.
Yeah,
and I said, okay, you know what? I'll include it. It won't take me more than a few minutes to try and put it together. So I'll include that one as well, and I'll start throwing in some showdown lineups. I do like NBA showdown stuff. I just don't do it as much outside the playoffs. But it should be a fun little slate. I think we've got a lot of information, but we're going to have a lot of pivots. And I'm going to be around at 6. Sheets, are you around at 6?
Yeah.
If not, no.
Yes, maybe. And we got to talk about this. I know you wanted to go a little earlier. I might be a little late, but okay. I could say. I might be a little late, but in general, around 6. By the way, the featured one is Knicks Utah. So I would start with Alec Burks in.
I love it. There you go. There's a little preview, Carmen, for what's going to definitely be on my showdown lineup, and probably my captain, by the way, just because that's what I would do in showdowns.
I would play Burks. I would start with Burks and Mitchell. And hey, if you want a fun fade, you can try fading Randall, like you said. I mean,
yeah, because I think that he will be very popular on that specific slate. And
literally, how it works. Then he's going to be like literally 90% owned.
Yeah, and the Knicks are kind of fun to play in showdowns because there is such variance with their guards. Like you don't know if it's going to be a Grimes or even a Quickly who might get the run off the bench if he's hot or something like that.
Right.
They're not the same Knicks they're not the old Tibbs type of coaching thing where everybody gets 40 minutes like the Raptors do now. It's now outside of Barrett and Randall, and it's really up in the air based on how they're playing. So they're kind of fun to play for showdown. So that might be kind of fun actually. Anyway, guys, again, please remember to like and subscribe, throw in your chats in the support channel on our Discord, and let's make some money today. Good luck.
All right, good luck.